Well, Merry Christmas again, everyone. Christmas is the most popular American holiday. It is more celebrated than any other holiday in America. Over 90% of Americans observe and celebrate Christmas every year. But if you pay attention, there's actually two different celebrations that go on at the same time. Because on the one hand, Christmas is a very important Christian holy day. We've got Christmas and Easter, the two big ones for Christians, the birth and resurrection of Jesus. At the same time, in terms of the economy, Christmas is also the most important secular holiday that we have as Americans. And many people who are not Christians still like the traditions of Christmas and still celebrate many of the Christmas traditions without celebrating the theological implications. And the result is that we've got two Christmas celebrations happening at the same time, and many times there's a tension that results. For example, for those of you who are Christians, you've noticed over the years that the Christmas music that would play on the radio or in the stores, it used to be O Come, Emmanuel, but now it's mostly been replaced by Santa Claus is coming to town. Or the standard greeting of Merry Christmas is largely replaced by Happy Holidays, and maybe Christians are offended because you feel as if the meaning and roots of Christmas have been hijacked by the secular holiday. But for those of you who are not Christians, or you do not consider yourself to be religious, you notice that the Christian roots of Christmas keep intruding uninvited into your December. I mean, here's what you would like your Christian friends to understand. Imagine if we took the theological implications of Hinduism or Buddhism or Islam and we set them to music, and for 1 month out of the year, we just played that music in public places. You know that your Christian friends would be outraged, but they seem to think that they have a right to have their theology played through music for 1 month out of the year, so you bite your tongue, so I'll say it for you so they can hear that from you. And maybe for some of you who aren't religious or you're not Christian, you still ended up in church on Christmas because the Christian aspects of Christmas keep intruding into your December. So my question is, what do we do with this tension between the sacred and the secular aspects of Christmas? My answer is, get used to it. Because of the commercial indispensability of Christmas, it will remain with us as a secular holiday, and because of the theological implications of Christmas, it will remain with us as a Christian holy day. So while these two celebrations exist side by side, I think what's fascinating is if you just look at them from the outside, the celebrations are almost identical. For example, if you're a Christian or not, pretty much everybody likes giving and receiving gifts at Christmas time. But this is from the Christian belief that the message of Christmas is that God so loved the world that He gave. He did what people who love people do. He gave. He gave His Son that whoever believes in Him will receive eternal life. So since God loved and God gave and we believe, we receive, the act of giving and receiving gifts does have Christian roots. Or take, for example, the idea of carols. Think of how important music is to everyone's Christmas celebration. Well, that's based in the Christian belief that angels sang the first Christmas carols to announce the birth of Jesus. Or the idea of acts of charity and being kind to the poor at Christmas. Christian or not, everyone believes that's a good idea. That's why we have all the red kettles out in front of all the stores and in certain football stadiums at Christmas time, because we all believe, that's what you should do. But that's actually rooted in the Christian belief that Jesus was born into a very poor working class family. His parents didn't have much money. He wasn't born in the big city. He was born in a small town. He wasn't born somewhere sanitary. He was born in a stable. His first bassinet was a feeding trough. But I think that might have helped him in the rest of his childhood. I mean, think about it. Every time he left a door open, his mother, Mary, could say, "Jesus, were you born in a barn?" "Mom, yeah, I remember the shepherds, the star, the stable. Yeah, I was born in a barn." But all the traditions, I said that last night, and my wife was like, "That's a dad joke." I'm like, "I know, that's a dad joke." The traditions, the celebrations we have at Christmas time are pretty much all rooted in Christian theology. But the one I want to talk about tonight, I guess it's today, whatever day we're on, this Christmas morning, the one I want to talk about today is the tradition that we have of not just decorating for Christmas, but using Christmas lights to decorate for Christmas. How many of you love seeing the Christmas lights up this time of year? You just love all the lights everywhere, yeah. How many of you, like me, hate putting up strands of Christmas lights because you believe they were invented by the devil to ruin Christmas? How many of you Okay, thank you, absolutely, yeah. I don't know how it is, but you can take your lights down in January, you can put them back in the original packaging, you can plug them in to make sure they all still work before you put them away, and then you can go and you can place them on a shelf in your basement, and you don't touch them, you just walk away. And 11 months later, when you go and get those lights out and you plug them in, what happens? They don't work. Half a strand went out, a bulb went out, a connection's loose, a fuse has blown, something lost contact. I don't know how it happens, but just sitting on a shelf in your dark basement, the lights go out and they don't work anymore. And now the devil ruined your Christmas. Just like that, that's how it works. But I think that's actually a very interesting metaphor for something that happens in our hearts. I think that for many of us, now that we've arrived at a new Christmas, it feels inside your heart or in your life that a light has gone out, that there's darkness. It's almost like just living in a dark world, just living your life in a dark world somehow mysteriously causes your light to go out. It's almost like you came to Christmas and it's like a bulb went out in your heart. Or something lost contact, or maybe you blew a fuse. Something isn't connected, but just another year in this dark world made some of your light go out this Christmas season. And you've come to Christmas and you knew today was supposed to be a day of joy and happiness and excitement and satisfaction, but something inside of you just feels a little bit dark. For some of you, that might have something to do with personal hardship you've been going through, with health, with death, with finances. For some of you, that might have something to do with your relationship with God. Maybe you used to believe in God when you were a child, but your childhood faith, it collided with the reality of the grown-up world we live in, and your childhood faith didn't survive that collision. Or maybe at last Christmas you would say, man, my faith in God was so big, it was so good, but somehow in this last year living in this dark world, I feel like that light has grown dim. And I call the world a dark place because when we look around at the world we live in, we just know this world isn't the way it should be. We know our world is inherently broken the way it works. We look around our world and what do we see? We see broken families, broken relationships. We see terrorism at home. We see terrorism around the world. Our country has never seen such a divide over political ideology. We see riots. We see that the murder count is up in every major city in our country this year. We see there's human trafficking going on, oppression, injustice. Just living in a dark world, or going through our own darkness, seems to turn the lights out. Today, what I want to share with you in our time together is that the purpose of Christmas, the reason for Christmas, is that no matter how great your darkness is this morning, Jesus came to turn the lights on. Now, to help you with that this morning, we're going to look at something from the Bible that was written by a man named Isaiah. Isaiah is fascinating. He was well-to-do, brilliant, related to royalty, and he lived 7 centuries before Jesus was born. Yet, although he lived 700 years before the first Christmas, he foretold with precision accuracy dozens of details about the birth, the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus. Stunning piece of literature. Today we're going to be in Isaiah chapter 9, where he foretold how Jesus would come to a dark world and how because of that, you this Christmas can have light. We're in Isaiah chapter 9, beginning at verse 2. He writes, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light." Now, he's talking about us. We live in a dark world. That was true in Isaiah's day, too. Nothing has really changed. Technology is the only thing that's changed. The world was just as dark then as it is today. But he says, the people living in a dark world, walking in darkness, we have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, he says, a light has dawned. And I want to talk about this phrase, deep darkness. Since Isaiah lived a long time ago, he wrote in the Hebrew language. And the Hebrew words here, if we translated them literally into English, they mean death shadow. For those living in the land of death shadow, a light has dawned. Now, I think that's a brilliant expression because this isn't anywhere else in Hebrew literature. It's like he kind of coined this phrase, death shadow. What he means is life as we know it is tainted by the shadow of death. Let me illustrate it this way. If you go home this afternoon or you go to grandma's house or wherever you go and there's a turkey made for dinner, let's say you set that turkey out on the table and you let it sit there and nobody touches it for 4 hours. What happens? It loses energy and it gets cold. Now in my house, that's not a problem. You just grab the mayonnaise and bread, make some sandwiches, and you go back to watching football or playing a board game or whatever we're doing. No big deal. But let's say that turkey sits there untouched for 4 days. Then what? You have to throw it out. It's no good anymore. Why? It's losing energy. Let's say that turkey sits there untouched for 4 weeks. Okay, you can't live there anymore. You know why you can't live there anymore? Because it's losing energy, because the turkey lives in the land of death shadow. Now, if this was a problem limited to poultry, it wouldn't be much of an issue, but it impacts you. Every year, you lose energy. Every year, someone else you know gets sick. Someone else you know dies. We're losing energy. We live in death's shadow. And it's not just we who are losing energy. Our solar system, our universe is losing energy, and it will inevitably come to an end. Now, a brilliant thinker who articulated the implications of this reality was a 20th century atheist philosopher by the name of Bertrand Russell. He, who did not believe in God, laid out clearly the implications of living in death's shadow. Look at what he wrote. He said, even more purposeless, more void of meaning is the world which science presents for our belief. What he means by that is the world that we can only observe. We can't really observe God, so let's write him out of the equation. You want to know what happens? Life is purposeless. Life is void of meaning, and he goes on to explain why life in death's shadow is purposeless. That man is the product of causes which had no prevision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms, that no fire, no heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave, that all the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system, and that the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. Only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. Here's what he's saying. It's not just that you're going to die and people say nice things like, well, you'll live on in other people's memories. He's saying they're going to die too, and then you're going to live on in nobody's memories, and then the whole universe is going to die, or at least our solar system will when the sun explodes, and then not only will there be nobody to remember anybody's memory, but everything we worked for, everything we've labored for, everything we accomplished, everything we did will suddenly be obliterated. It means in the end that nothing mattered. Your accomplishments didn't matter. Your relationships didn't matter. Whether you were naughty or nice, it didn't matter. Whether you had a great life or a miserable life, it didn't matter, because in the end, everything's obliterated. Now go enjoy your Christmas cookies. Merry Christmas. That's what Bertrand Russell has to say to us, but he's telling the truth. If all there is the land of death shadow that we live in, it's all meaningless. But unfortunately, Isaiah is saying it's a little worse than that. In the Bible, light is always used as a metaphor to describe God. According to the Genesis account of creation, before God created a sun or stars, there was light, because he himself was the source of the light. When we get pictures from the biblical authors of what heaven will be like, we're told that there's no sun in heaven. We don't need a sun because God is there and God is the source of all light. God is light. Also throughout the Bible, the metaphor of darkness represents being away from God, being distant from God. And the reason why Isaiah says that light has dawned, we are to think of the sun, because his point is God is the sun around which your life was designed to orbit. If you want to live with joy, if you want to live with significance, if you want to live with hope in your life, if you want to live with meaning, it means your life must orbit around God with Him as the center of your personal solar system. Darkness, however, happens when you choose to make something else other than God the functional center of your life, your meaning, your significance, your joy, and your hope. For example, for many men like me, we make career and advancement and achievement the true center of our life. How do you know you're somebody? How do you know you matter? How do you know you have a purpose? How do you justify your existence? Through work. I work hard. I produce. I get paid well. Look at what I've accomplished. I'm moving up the ladder. I know I'm somebody because of work. For some of you, it's relationships. How do you know you're somebody? How do you know you matter? Well, you're nobody unless somebody loves you, and somebody loves me. I matter. I'm somebody. We're constantly doing this. We're constantly looking for something God created to orbit our lives around rather than God who created it. And the result when we do that, and it was what Isaiah is getting at, is complete spiritual disintegration. Just like when you take a plant out of the sun and put it in the dark for 2 weeks, the plant will disintegrate. When your life orbits around something other than God, your life will begin to disintegrate. So you're orbiting your life around your career, and that's how you know your existence is justified. When you have a minor criticism about your performance, personally, it's devastating. Because now your very meaning in life is threatened. And when you have a major setback like a job loss, it's absolutely crushing. Because that was your source of purpose and meaning and joy in life, and now you're nobody. Or in the relationship, when the person you've centered your life on, whether it's a lover, whether it's your child or a friend or a parent, and you need their approval, you need their acceptance, you need their adoration, you need their love. When they criticize you, it's devastating. But when they dump you, when they argue with you, when they call you names, it's absolutely devastating. Because what you decided to orbit your life around in the end disappointed you. It could not bear the weight of giving you a purpose and identity in life. Isaiah is saying, when we do that spiritually, when something or someone other than God becomes the center of your personal universe, it will lead to disintegration. The land of death's shadow is both physical as we lose energy. It is spiritual when we worship and serve something other than God and look to something other than God for meaning. But Isaiah gives us hope. Here's what he said. He said, on those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has what? It has dawned. Which means we could not find the light by ourselves. We needed light to rise on us and dawn on us. It had to come from outside our world. Which means that the message of Christmas is not a sentimental message, if you think about it. I mean, we tend to sentimentalize Christmas. We think, of the manger scene where there's Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, and no crying he makes. There's some chickens, and they don't cluck, and there's an ox and a lamb, and they're keeping time for the kid playing the drum solo, and then everything's wonderful, and there's shepherds coming in and wonder, and Joseph kind of leans over to Mary. We can visualize this, and he whispers, I'm so glad we had this child in a barn instead of in some sterile medical facility. Aren't you glad we did that? We kind of sentimentalize it. The message of Christmas isn't sentimental according to Isaiah. Here's what he's getting at. Things really are this dark. Things really are this hopeless in our world, but nevertheless, there is hope. And here's the hope, verse 5. Every warrior's boot used in battle and every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. Here's the imagery. There will be a great battle fought. There will be a great war fought and waged against the darkness, against evil, and there will be a victory, but all your military gear, it's not going to help you a bit. You're not going to fight. Someone else will fight the evil for you. Someone else will fight the darkness for you. You're not going to fight. For, he says, to us a child is born, to us a son is given. Now, you've probably received some Christmas gifts in the past that were pretty thoughtless. Maybe you don't drink coffee and someone gave you a Starbucks card and you said, "Oh, that is the perfect gift for someone else." All right, you've gotten Christmas gifts like that. But there are other Christmas gifts that if you are going to receive them and truly be thankful, it requires remarkable humility. So let's say today, someone close to you hands you a present and said, I saw this and I thought of you. And you open the present and it's a book on dieting. And they say, "Oh, wait, I have another gift that I saw and I thought of you as well." And they hand you another present and you open that one and it's another book. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, you can give a fake, hollow thank you, but if you are going to actually sincerely receive those gifts with thanksgiving, it requires amazing humility and you saying, "Thank you, for indeed I am fat and obnoxious. Thank you for thinking of me." What Isaiah is saying in these verses is that a gift is being given, but in order for you to receive it, it will require more humility than you might be willing to give. What he's saying is, your darkness is so deep, you will never find the way to light by yourself. The message of Christmas is not, if we all practice goodwill, we can make our world a bright place again. The message of Christmas is, life and death's shadow is so dark, we need light to dawn on us. There needs to be a war fought against evil, but we are hopeless in this battlefield. Someone had to come and fight for you because we could not win this war. A gift is given, and if you are going to receive the gift from God at Christmas, it requires incredible humility. Enough humility to say, "Thank you for giving your Son, Jesus, God, for indeed, I will never find the light by myself. Thank you for giving your Son, Jesus, God, for indeed, I am a sinner. For indeed, I always look for something other than you for my life to orbit around." Yet, what God gave at Christmas was His Son, Jesus, who came into this world. He broke through into our darkness, and He lived a blameless, perfect, holy life, and He did it as your representative. He did it as someone fighting a battle for you. He lived a life of His light, and then on the cross He gave up His life to pay for your sins. He banished darkness for you. He lived in your place. He died in your place. He rose on Easter Sunday, and the gift He offers you at Christmas is forgiveness and grace and peace with God and a home in heaven, which cannot be received without humility. Here's what Jesus said one time. In John chapter 8, Jesus said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me." Whoever follows me. Not whoever goes to church. Not whoever gets their act together. Not whoever straightens up and flies right. He just said this, whoever. He said, "Jason, you don't know my life. I don't need to. You're a whoever. You don't know my sin or my past. I don't need to. This is Jesus. It's not about me or what I think. It's about what Jesus said. And Jesus said, whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do two things. Our guest service team members are going to come forward. And the first thing they're going to do, I'll explain this, they're going to pass out a basket. That's for those of you who want to financially support the mission and vision of hope. The reason why we receive an offering at Christmas time is because when Jesus was born, Magi came and they brought, at great personal expense, gifts to honor Jesus. They brought gold, incense, and myrrh. Gold is a gift for a king. Incense is a gift for a priest. Myrrh was a spice they used in embalming the dead. There was a prophetic gift which said, Jesus, you are a king. Jesus, you are a priest who will represent us before God, and you are the very sacrifice that will deliver us from sin. So we prefer money, but if you brought gold, incense, or myrrh, you can give that today because it is biblical. That's just for those of you who want to support Hope's mission and vision. Second thing they're bringing around, they're going to pass around a bucket, and it's filled with glow sticks. Take one, don't break it. Take one, don't take a handful. This isn't last-second Christmas shopping for your grandchildren. Take one and hold on to it. Don't bend it, because if you do, in about 15 seconds, everybody in this room is going to know that you just don't follow directions well, and I want to spare you of that embarrassment. So I want you to take it, and I want you to hold on to it. Just pass the bucket down the row. And after it goes by, while you're holding on to your glow stick, here's what I want you to think about in your chair. What darkness is in your life today? Is there darkness as you celebrate Christmas? Because God's light is greater than your darkness. God's light is greater than the darkness of this world. And the reason why we do this with glow sticks is because the only way to release the light of a glow stick is to break it, and then light comes forth. The only way for us to be free of our darkness is for Jesus to break into this world, to break into our darkness, and to be our light, to be our hope, to be our joy. And that's why the angels told the shepherds the message of Christmas is not good advice, it is good news of great joy. The message of Christmas is news. This is what God did for you. He came to fight a battle for you. He came to banish the darkness for you. He came to forgive sin for you. So that as a result, we have great joy. So while you're holding your glow stick, I want you to think, what darkness is there in my heart this morning? What about living in this dark world has caused some connection to go out, a light to go out, a fuse to blow? Maybe your faith did take a hit this year because you went through some hard circumstances. Maybe your darkness has to do with your marriage, your job, maybe something to do with your finances. I don't know. With this many people in the room, I know there's a lot of ways for us to lose the light, for us to lose hope, and for us to lose joy. But what's true is that God is not afraid of darkness. God's light is stronger than your darkness. It is stronger than your worry. It is stronger than your fear. So I want you to get crystal clear. What darkness is there in your heart this Christmas? Because in a moment when we break these glow sticks, I want you to think about Jesus breaking into our world and breaking into our hearts with His light, with His truth, with His grace, with His peace, and with His forgiveness. That's why we break glow sticks. That, and in a nice venue like this, they don't let us use candles. We'd get wax everywhere. So that's why we use glow sticks, right? Just being honest up here this morning. All right, have you thought about it yet? Does God seem far away? Maybe you've lost hope in Him? Okay. So wait for my count, but here's what we're going to do. When Jesus entered into this world, He entered into a world of great darkness. In fact, the gospel writers tell us that when Jesus was crucified, the whole land was covered in darkness for 3 hours. And that's because darkness represents something else in the Bible. Darkness also represents justice, God's divine justice, God's punishment of sin. And on the cross, Jesus, who is the light of the world, willingly suffered the darkness of God's judgment in your place for your sins, so that you could have God's light forever. Jesus, the light of the world, descended into the darkness of God's judgment so that you could live in God's light forever. Jesus left heaven to come to earth so that you could go to heaven and live with Him forever. Jesus is about light breaking into darkness so we can have light. So on the count of 3, I want you to break your glow sticks, and when we do, remember that Jesus breaks the darkness. Ready? 1, 2, 3. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to those on whom His favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in a manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. God's light broke through into our darkness. God's joy broke through into our sorrow. God's grace broke through into our sin. And because of Jesus, you have light.